Yes, thank you, Steph. Okay. We're starting. Okay. Um, okay, well, actually, this is good to record because I wanna say for the Taylor, as I said, definitely will not be joining us tonight because she had to do some medical stuff with the boys, one of the two boys, I don't know which one. So we're recording this, so nobody do any weird things, including me. But yeah, but I want to say a few things just for posterity too. Um, why don't you open the cameras? And if you don't want to, that's okay. Rick, if you want to just eat dinner, that's fine. But we are, to clarify, there's a number of benefits to doing it online. Hi, Steph. It's not only that you can be in your own nice warm home. We could have probably we could have done a few more sessions there. It's just we had to turn on the heat and somebody brings food and we're noshing and then there's somebody online. So it was getting complicated. Second reason, as I remember, as I want to point out, is on no offense, but we are small. This is a smaller group. So it's not like 12, 15 people sitting around. But I hinted in the last email, I think and I'm sorry, the syllabus keeps on changing. And if you bear with me, I'm doing that. But I never did it like this when I had started the class, then the holidays, then started the class, again. So we finished, Herb, for your information, we've already done uh, the essential elements of the high holidays. Tonight's topic is Shabbat and everything related to Shabbat. And Rick, if you haven't done so, anybody who hasn't done so, go to the chat and you can download. There's Debbie. Good. Debbie's going to be enjoying this. Um, Stephanie, I'm hitting admits before you. It's okay. Because they come on my thing. Um, and there's DT. Okay, DT is Devin and Jamie. Devin Tenoro, DT. Where was I? I was starting to say, hang on, guys, those who just signed logging in. I was repeating, um, we will have at least one session in person. Um, hopefully, weather holds out probably on the topic of um, Judaism, Christianity, the schism, the split. Oh, there's two JTs. Oh, there's DT and JT. Okay, um, and that's both her and him. And we may have a second session, or so it's either one or the other. We may have one session on Hanukkah together, or we may have one session on um, the Judaism Christianity issue and some of the history. But after this week and next week are Shabbat and Kashrut for sure. But after next week, I'm going to get into history, and I'll get to that. I wanted to um, ask now that everybody's here, how many of you own Stan Mack's book? Bought it? You're nodding your heads. Everybody why don't you open your cameras? Because I want to use the book, or at least have you read it. All right. Hello, Debbie, JT, DT, anybody. Open the cameras. I love you guys, but oh, see, okay, that's Herbert, and Herbert works. Well, you can introduce yourself in a minute, Herb. Um, and
Hello.
you're looking good too.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
all right, so 'cause I saw him yesterday or Sunday, and there's Devin. Um, so all right, so I want to do history in 2 weeks. We're going to start biblical, rabbinic. We'll get up to the end of rabbinic, but we're also going to cover Maccabees, Hanukkah, and we'll pause. In January, totally online, I assume we'll be snowed in. We will start with the Middle Ages, the Old Age, I'm middle aged, the medieval period, as they say, and also somewhere in there will be a session on Kabbalah because it fits historically. It's important that we kind of put things where they might fit historically. Okay, so now that everybody's logged on, um, talk amongst yourselves for a minute. I don't want to take too much time, meaning I want to teach, but the question on the table, and Herb, you'll start if you don't mind. I mean, you're not a wallflower. You're pretty outgoing. Herb, this is a class. It turns out most of the people in this class are wanting to either convert or learn more. There's a couple of mixed couples. Debbie down in there in the one corner is a Jewish woman who's a member of the synagogue, and she just loves learning and arguing and discussing. So why don't you, Herb, if you don't mind, introduce yourself. But the question on the table for everybody is um, a kind of like Socratic, right? What does Shabbat mean to you? How do you celebrate Shabbat? What do you think? What do you think we're going to talk about today? In other words, it's not just Socratic, but it's also anticipatory learning, is what they call this. So we're going to talk, and some of you read the material, some of you didn't get a chance. Lighting Shabbat candles, the Kiddush, general halacha for Shabbat, what's liberal version, traditional version. If we can, we will get to, and the prohibited work. We will also hopefully get to at least some of the Shabbat liturgy and the Siddur, because you guys are all coming to services. So real quickly, like everybody gets 60 seconds, but Herbert gets 2 minutes. Okay. You want me to say anything about you, Herbert? Or you
Well,
want
I don't think I have enough to say in 2 minutes. I mean, I think I need only 15 seconds. My name
to?
is Herbert. I've been with the rabbi for 20 plus years, on and off.
Yeah.
So he got lost for a while, or I got lost. I don't know who
No,
did.
I was in the prison system. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So,
Uh-huh.
we reconnect to be Facebook,
Uh-huh.
and this funny thing because I used to go to the synagogue and I was like on my way to conversion and all that stuff. And then when you left, I stopped for some
Yeah.
reason. So I
With West
decided,
Coast.
hey,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
if I'm going to convert, it's going to be with Rabbi Halfon. He's my rabbi, and that's it. And that's
yeah.
the end of the story, I guess. And I'm sticking to it.
Right, right. And he is, and everybody has their life cycle changes. When I met him, he was, I'm not saying this to be too personal, but he was married to one woman. They subsequently got divorced. Then he met a wonderful woman from Turkmenistan. I was at your house for Thanksgiving with
That's
Anna.
right. That's
And
right.
Anna and he are a beautiful couple. She's not converting, she's just happy being what she is. But meanwhile, and this is the part, you know what, Herbert, you got a minion, you can do Kaddish for your mom. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
his mother in
Absolutely.
El Salvador had a stroke, and big family. He had to go back there and help her, and then he had to stay. Meanwhile, he's still working for the LA city. He's what are you, an architect? No.
Architect, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, all right, well, since you got the floor, now you have 15 seconds. Why is Shabbat special to you? Or what is special about Shabbat to you? There's no right answer.
Um, I think that is the time when I feel more connected to Judaism because of,
Mhm,
on that particular night I do the prayers, in the morning. I put the my talid and all that stuff, and it make me feel very connected more
mhm,
than any other day.
mhm.
The food is also really good. It's a good connection, and in that particular day, I I try to be as kosher as I can. So, you know,
Right.
not that I do it all the time, but that
Rick and
day,
I were talking about that the other day. Rick, on Shabbat, you shouldn't eat pork. No, he doesn't. Okay, let's go to Rick. And because I don't want you guys to think I'm favoring Herbert. But anyway, welcome. It just occurred to me as we were getting set up. Who else
well,
wants to
thank
start?
you.
Let's go around. It's going to take too long if I don't. What does Shabbat mean to you? How do you observe it? What do or if you have a specific question to ask me, Rabbi, I heard people tear their toilet paper before Shabbat. Yes, some people do. Can you use a timer on your lights? Yes, you can. All right, shut up, Rabbi. Rick and then Stephanie. If you're there, Rick, open up.
Hey, it's to me, it's more just going to the synagogue and praying and just
Mhm,
trying to find my good connection to God.
mhm. Can you open your camera just so people can say hi? Everybody open the cameras if you don't mind. It doesn't matter if you're in your t-shirt. And okay, but everybody knows here. Um, I think what's really special about you is, and we talked about this the other day, his wife, Amber Dawn, is is supportive. But so I mean, by the way, Rick stands because of his back. But your wife makes these incredible challahs. Hi, Debbie. I mean, I'm saying hi to everybody, but all right. So that's it, Rick. Main thing for you is the synagogue, the relationship there. Yeah, it's not for this particular community. Some people are at home, some people are, but it's you have to celebrate Shabbat even if you don't go to synagogue. Steph, you're next, unless you don't want to. Debbie,
Okay. Yeah. No,
yeah,
it's all good. Let's see. I tend to focus on peace as much as I can, that trying to slow down, and I enjoyed the disconnect from the
yeah.
rest of the world, so to speak.
Wow.
Um, but on the whole, being as kosher as you can, is it kosher to use my leg since it's electronic and whatnot?
Oh my goodness. Wait, no, your prosthetic is electronic?
Yeah, I have to charge it. It
Oh,
has
no, I that's fascinating because I was going to um one of the topics for the another class and in Telushkin is pikuach nefesh, but pikuach nefesh mainly means saving a life. Can you run into a building on fire on Shabbat to save somebody? Can you go to take somebody to the hospital on Shabbat? And the answer is yes. Now, that particular issue hadn't occurred to me. I would say, I mean, I'm not just saying it as me, but as a halachically, um, one would say, like, what if a person has a pacemaker in the body? Isn't that electronic also?
Mhm.
Anything like that. So you would die without, or you'd be. So I don't think any Orthodox rabbi would say you must take off your prosthetic leg
Because
on Shabbat. Whatever is ridiculous.
yeah.
But it may so make sure you charge it be ahead of time if you wanted to do that, so you don't have to think about it. Fascinating. All right, we're going to go to Debbie. The topic is, what does Shabbat mean to you? What do you think it's supposed to mean? What would you like to be doing? No guilt here. You know, you're we can come back to you. We are being recorded. No, I'm not muting you. You have to Oh, this is the part that she worried about is being computer doing on computers. We have issues. Do you see at the bottom? Are you on the Zoom? Hey, this is a big Shehechianu moment for her. If you're at the bottom of the thing, it says there's a little microphone bottom left, and there's a video. You see the microphone? It'll say unmute. All right. All right. Devin's going to get in his car and go over to your house and turn you on. We'll come back to you, Debbie. We love you. Okay. So Sam and Emily, because I mean, I'm sorry to give away. Sam and Emily, when I met them, said we're already doing this. So you're next. Go ahead. And we talked to it.
Well, every Friday night we light candles.
Mhm,
We've done it for a couple years. I don't know how long we've done it.
mhm,
A few years though.
mhm,
And what I really like about it, I think similar to Stephanie, is just the intention of it.
mhm,
Intentionally being peaceful. Especially, we work really hard. I know we all do. And sometimes just having a moment to just breathe before we even light the candles, we like take a sec
Mhm.
and like let stuff go. And it's a really powerful moment before we light the candles to really
Mhm.
let the work week go and to be
Right.
intentional about family. So yeah, to me, it's the intention of it.
Beautiful. Devin, Jamie, or Devin and Jamie, are you in two different rooms, or Devin,
Yeah,
you
Jamie's in the other room holding a really big rabbit at the moment because I'm multitasking.
you're next,
Because
and then we'll see if Debbie can get back in there.
sure. But I don't know, kind of piggybacking on what's been said, what we'd like to do for Shabbat is have a peaceful day, stress-free and kind of
Yes.
free flowing. I still haven't figured out how to do that at this point, especially since
You're
we have an
still
odd work schedule.
working, yeah.
But it's as far as we're discussing our baked in stuff here this week and everything, discussing what changes we're going to want to do and need to do as far as to follow, the kosher deal and
Mhm.
things to keep in the home.
We've lost Debbie.
And really honestly probably making time to study and really just kind of taking it all in, especially kind of going in like we talked about earlier, the holiday season coming up, obviously, raised Christian, this time of year means one thing, but that one hasn't been really a hard one for us the last couple of years because really it seems like our opinion or Christmas isn't even about the birth of Jesus anymore. It's about just having a festive season or out Christmasing the next guy.
Right. Well,
Um,
but that's not quite the topic, but I hear you where you're going. Yeah.
well,
And
that's the state of mind I'm in right now, though, as
you're
far
right.
as
You're
our
right.
journey
It's
is.
going to be all around us. Herb,
Yeah.
your information, Herb, being in Wyoming is a little bit, it's not as crazy as Alabama or Mississippi, but and there, people are friendly and tolerant, but it is a very strongly Christian town. And, there's lots of churches here. And also because it's a city, we all live close by. It's like, I remember, I used to drive through when I used to go to West Covina. I would drive through, um, one of those little towns. I can't remember, Downey or something. And there's Christmas decorations in the city. Okay, back to the specific topic. Debbie, did you get your problem solved? Do you want to go? I mean, now she's there, but she's not in the camera nor. Okay, I'm going to get started then, folks. But I want to, just apropos of what you just said, Devin, I wasn't going to do this, but I thought of this as you were talking. Rebecca Slingwine, you guys remember Rebecca? That's Rebecca and Ben, who had the baby. We had Ben's, this is just quickly as an example. We had Ben's baked in at the synagogue, and she said, I'm Buddhist, I'm not ready. It was just his time. He'd been on the journey a long time. She then, a year later, took this class, and then we took her down to Denver, and we had our baked in here. Here's what she wrote. The first question, please tell us how you celebrate, observe, or recognize a weekly Shabbat experience. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but she wrote, I'm writing this on Shabbat. Well, I'm at the hospital because she's a doctor. She is the main, not the, but I don't know, she's a hospital specialist in Wheatland. And she's treating a mother who lost her baby. I've never met the mother before, and she gives a story about all that. She says, not every Friday night is like this. Sometimes it's a live baby who I get to welcome into the world. Sometimes it's a DNC and whatever. So you get it that she's busy. She's doing what you talked about, Stephanie, in a sense I was saying about pikuach nefesh. She is a doctor. So what does she write next? She says, I keep a set of travel candles at work and will light those at sunset, as I try to do when I'm in the hospital on Shabbat. I usually slow cook a meal at home so I can try to focus on Shabbat without having to worry what to eat. And so, she's and then she talks about if she's off call, which is different, they will come down to the synagogue. It's 80 miles, you guys know, it's back and forth. But I want to begin with that idea that you do what you can do. I would like us to look at Joe Telushkin's book in a minute, but a note, something about, this is my copy. Joe when I first met him was in New York, and his friend at the time was Dennis Prager. I don't agree with much of what Dennis Prager does these days, but they wrote a book together called The 9 Questions Jews Ask. It's very interesting. It's still in print. And Dennis wrote an interesting article once in which he got into this. This has to do with Shabbat and kosher. And Dennis, by the way, is, for all intents and purposes, orthoprax. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to get into his life, but he is traditional. So is Tolushkin. But so Dennis made this interesting point in an article. I used to include it in my intro classes. People think that if you don't do it all, you're not doing it, you know? So I can't keep Shabbat the way I was told traditional people have to, excuse me. So I'm not going to do anything. He said, and that wasn't quite what he said, but he says, do what you can. And this is coming from a very traditional Jew. Do what you can. This has to do with next week's topic of kashrut as well. And the two topics I want to introduce, which is in the reading material I sent you, is Shamor v'Zachor. You remember in the Lechadodi, Shamor v'Zachor b'dibur echad. So let's look at the PowerPoint that there are two things. I mean, I want to talk and get through this, but I want to follow a plan. The two things that one of the two things I sent you is a PowerPoint, which I'm setting up right now, and it's called Chapter 5 because it's Chapter 5 of the Denver intro program. But it's also in the other form is, whoops, I said share, don't share. I want to share. It's also in, I see, maybe I didn't put it in the chat. It's in a different form it's in a PDF, not a, let's see, hang on a second. Stop share. Okay, let's take that down for a minute. Oh, this is the part I hate. All right, I'm gonna just do the screen, the PowerPoint. Okay, so class 5, Shabbat. Do you all see that? Let me get that out of the way. There we go. So look at the table. I mean, that's why I sent this to you, but I wanted you to see it. It's colorful. So there's Amber Dawn's challah right there. Like that, Rick? There's the Kiddush cup, and there are the candlesticks. So I want to say this, and we are being recorded. I want to say, if you don't come, our synagogue, frankly, is Friday oriented. Many synagogues are Friday oriented, or both. Some synagogues are more oriented around Shabbat morning. But I don't want you to forget, I want you to think about the idea that you could say, I'm not coming to services this week, or we're not coming because we're going to do Shabbat at home. I don't mean we're going to a movie, we're going to be out of town. So again, Emily and Sam, I think, will relate to this. So the magic of Shabbat, and you can do both. You can light candles and come to synagogue. The magic of Shabbat, as several of you alluded to, is that at 4:45 or 5 o'clock or 5:15, depending on the time of day or the whether you want to be completely traditional, you light the candle. So you're sitting at home, and you guys saw the movie. We showed them we showed them the movie Ushpizin about the Hasidic couple in Jerusalem. But I think it's very beautiful to think of Shabbat in your own way. I'm stressing that, in your own way, similar to the way a traditional family would. What do I mean? And there's a couple of things coming up in the slideshow too. Clean the house, get your bills paid, don't get your bills paid, finish, you know what I'm talking about. Finish the work week in the best way you can. This is hard for Devin because he said about the your work schedule. So let's say we'll leave the synagogue out of it for a moment. So Shamor, the next slide here, Shamor means the do nots. Don't do this, don't do that. I'm putting a fence around this. The knots. But Zachor, many people forget, what do you do to remember Shabbat, the do's? Well, we're going to look at some of the do's of Shabbat. Now, but let me go back to the text. Here is the picture of the Ten Commandments. The Hebrew, I am the Lord. This is number one. I am the Lord your God. Don't have any other gods before me. Don't take the names, God's name in vain. It's short. Number 4 is Zachor et HaShabbat lekodsho, right? Keep the Shabbat. And here it is in the English, right? The version from Exodus says, remember the Shabbat day. And again, you have this in the PDF, but I don't mind you taking the PowerPoint. But please, by the way, don't share these PowerPoint things with other people because they're not mine. They're Denver. Denver got them from LA, and the LA program is the one I used to teach in. So I have their permission. So, well, notice the difference. Does anybody want to read this? Is that possible? Devin, Sam?
Yeah, I can read it.
Okay.
So Exodus 28:11. Remember the Shabbat day to sanctify it. 6 days you will work and do all your labor. The 7th day is a Sabbath for Adonai your God. Don't do any labor on it, neither you nor your sons or daughters, your servants, your animals, or the strangers who reside within your gates. In 6 days God made heaven and earth, the sea and all that dwell in it, and God rested on the 7th day. On account of that, God blessed the Shabbat day to set it apart.
Great, thank you. Somebody also read, well, we may not read all of the Deuteronomy. So as some of you remember, there are 2 different versions or 2 iterations of the same 10 Commandments. It's not my fault, it's Moses' fault, but the main reason, the Exodus version is supposed to be, or we imagine it to be, what was done then. And then he's an old man, and he's, as you remember, Deuteronomy is these speeches, these talks that Moses gives as he's getting ready to go to into the wild blue yonder. And he repeats, he says, and this happened, and then we went here, and then the Lord spoke to me, and then he reiterates the 10 Commandments. Well, or I hate to call them 10 Commandments, the 10 sayings, but for some reason, the second version of it says, guard, there's the Shamor business. So the rabbis looked at this and they said, I said it a minute ago, but I'm repeating, Zachor, and this is really key to tonight's discussion. What do I do to remember, to keep it, to make it special? And that we will look at some of those possibilities. And that could be, I'll get to one of the more colorful things in a minute since you're all adults. But another thing is, we're going to go sit in the backyard, meditate, pray. We might, if you wanted to be a liberal Jew, say, I've been wanting so bad to listen to that, Rachmaninoff Symphony No. 2. So I'm going to just do it. I didn't get to do it all week. But if you wanted to be more traditional, you know what? I thought of this the other day. Read a book. Turn off the damn TV and read a book. But so I'm emphasizing to remember, Zachor, means, I could put it this way. I remembered your birthday, honey. Here's a lovely present. Or I'm going to make dinner for you. So you remembered, so you're celebrating in a positive. I'm not saying this is positive and that's negative, but now the Shamor part is what a lot of Jews or Christians even get stumble over. Yeah, you can't do this, you can't do that. How am I supposed to do this if I can't do that? I can't look at my phone. Da, 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 da. So that's where you have to make some decisions, what you're not going to do. But remember what it says, Shamor, meaning to guard it, so again, the example of mom or something, or it's your birthday, don't yell at your mother, don't don't call, even if, God forbid, and anybody in this room would have that, you're having an argument with your loved one, don't get so angry that you curse them out or you slam the door. That would be a negative. You know what I'm saying? Is anybody interpreting this? So shamor means to guard it in such a way that you make it. They're both making it holy, but the zachor, and this was a rabbinic interpretation. It's not necessarily, the word just means remember, keep. Okay, but they did was they said shomer. This is the word coming up. This is the humorous part. Shomer Shabbat. People, you'll say, I'm Shomer Shabbos. I'm Shomer Shabbos. Okay, so Shomer Shabbos means there are things I won't do on Shabbat. Now, you all know my story. Well, let's look at Walter for a minute, John Goodman and Jeff Bridges. But in a minute, there are things that Orthodox or even conservative Jews, my friends Fran and Joel in LA, grew up conservative. He's the son of a rabbi. They are conservative Jews. They go to synagogue together. They sit together, totally egalitarian, but damn it, they don't drive or answer the phone on Shabbat. I mean, maybe it was emergency. They might. And they live close enough to the synagogue so they can walk to shul. So when you hear people say, I'm Shomer Shabbos, that's what they mean. But let's use the Israeli version, Shomer Shabbat. Let's say it together, Shomer.
Shomer.
Shomer Shabbat.
I heard you all. That's great. Okay, so Shomer Shabbat, meaning this, I don't do this. So here's the funny scene, if you remember, from The Big Lebowski, and I didn't make this up. It was in the slideshow, but it's so interesting because, they're at the bowling alley, and John Goodman's character, the guy on the left, he finds out that they have a tournament that, like, next Saturday. He says, I told them 1,000 times I don't roll on Shabbos. So but the background to it, I don't know who wrote the script, is maybe he was Jewish and the character was Jewish, but he's also, you remember, he gets into fights all the time. But John Goodman at that time was at the time the movie was made, was married to Roseanne Barr and was converting to Judaism. Anyway, it's funny. This one is not, I don't have this. So now we're going to cover the knots. Okay. So what the rabbis did, and I could pull it out. Maybe I have the text here. And I don't want to start a new topic, but this is an example of midrash. Midrash, usually people think midrash means, raise your hand if you're not following me, okay? Midrash means exegesis, commentary, interpretation that's not clear from the text. And it can also mean, it can be two kinds. There's philosophical midrash and there's halachic midrash. So we'll get to that in a few weeks when we start that topic of the rabbis. But what the rabbis did is they looked at this. So it does say specifically in the Torah, don't work, don't go a certain distance, don't light a fire on Shabbat. So those things were clear. It says don't do your business on Shabbat. Fine, but they still didn't spell it out. So what they did was they were very creative, and I'm just going to say the general place now. In the Parsha where they are building the end of Exodus, called Terumah, they are building I'm going to go to the next slide for a minute. There we go. They are building the ark, the Mishkan, the traveling little Raiders of the Lost Ark thing. So what do they have to do to build it? But it says, strangely enough, this is why the midrash part comes in. It happens to say, and I'm saying this is interpretation, this is not spelling it out. Please, I'll say it again so you make sure you get it clear. How did the rabbis decide 39 categories of work that was forbidden on Shabbat? Because, again, as I said, the only thing the Torah says is don't work, don't travel too far, Don't, and it said specifically, don't even have your maidservant or your manservant, your children and so on. No, Charlie, you can't turn on the TV. But mommy, no, I mean, whatever. But they went so far as to say, I'm going back to the text. In this parsha, it says, this is how you shall build the ark. You will do this, you will do that. But before it gets to that verse, that happens to have, it's not, it's Kitisa? No, it's Teruma. It happens to say, you must keep my Shabbatot. And then it goes and it describes how you build the Mishkan, what you do, you take these skins and these jewels and sew this and sew that. And so they create the ark. And then after it, and following me, after it, there happens to be another verse that says, Ach et Shabtotai tishmoru. Ach, but you must keep my Shabbats. Now, there's no relationship. It's just, but the rabbi said, yes, there is. And in other words, it was a case of what are we going to do? This is the Roman period, folks. What are we going to tell people they can't do on Shabbat? Well, so if you go through it, you would have to sow seeds to grow, let's say, linens or flax. You would have to winnow, you'd have to bake, but let's do the little harder stuff. You have to trap the animal for the skin. You have to scrape the skin off. You can't build and you can't demolish. When we put up the sukkah the other day, when we took it down the other day, you don't build on Shabbat. So similarly, you don't build or demolish. You don't write on Shabbat, but conversely, you don't erase. So, some of the synagogues I know have their religious school on Shabbat morning. It's a dilemma. It's the Reform ones, it's probably not a big deal, but for some of them, they'll say, well, yes, we can have the children go to school, maybe while the parents are in services, but then what are we going to do if the teachers need to write? They don't write. So anyway, I'm just giving you the source. The source for these, here it is, Mishnah Shabbat. We will be learning what a Mishnah is. Just giving you a preview. The Torah tells us, in addition to stories and philosophy and poetry, it also tells us laws. But as I said, it does not say you must do this. Like I said, don't light a fire, don't travel long distances, you can walk. So they developed this system. Is that clear? So, let's say killing, okay? I mean, let's say killing an animal. You would not slaughter an animal for eating, but you could go, and this is an interesting thing. Devin and Jamie have chickens, right? That chickens can manage for a little while. On the Orthodox kibbutz where I worked, they had to go and milk the cows on Shabbat. So they're getting to the compromises now. But they ruled, the chief rabbis of Israel ruled way back in the 40s that electric generators have to keep running on Shabbat. Not only so, Irving or Moshe and Yaakov can have a light in their house. That's fine. You can leave the generator on. What about the hospital? So there's people in the hospital that have, they're on heart monitors, whatever. So there's the pikuach nefesh issue, as I said before, the saving of a life.
Hey,
So,
Rabbi,
yes, sir.
what is the extinguishing of fire talk about? Like, what is that referring to? Because I mean, obviously, if your house is on fire, you probably want to extinguish that.
Correct. That's great. Thank you. We light Shabbat candles. And I feel badly doing this, but sometimes you just like you don't light it, you don't extinguish it. So we're talking about an ideal world, which we don't have here. We try at Mount Sinai to light Shabbat candles, but we've now stopped that because it's just too late. So you light candles, and that's coming up in a few minutes. You light candles at the appropriate time. It may be as early as 4 o'clock in the winter. let's say you've lit your Shabbat candles. We'll get to the specifics of that in a minute. You light your Shabbat candles, and then let's say you have to go to synagogue or go down to your bedroom, leave them on a metal tray in the kitchen, so that God forbid there's any breeze or a cat comes in, they don't get knocked over, you know. So, but no, you do not blow them out. They're not like a birthday candle. Is that clear? So that's why cooking for the traditional Jew is forbidden on Shabbat. You cook everything beforehand. I'm saying this stuff so you have the education, I mean, it's in Joe's book too. So these are not all 39 of them, but so let's see, weaving or unweaving. I mean, in other words, tying and untying. So I used to, when I was in my Orthodox phase, I would ask rabbis and friends, can I tie my shoe on Shabbat? Well, you could trip. So I knew people who would go and buy a pair of shoes that had what's that thing called? Velcro. All right. So, or slip-ons. So I used to wear slip-ons. You can tie a knot, but you just can't tie a really tight knot. So, but we'll get to that. So this is the word I want to go over with you. Milacha. Let's say that together. Milacha.
Milacha.
Milacha. Malach is just confusing because melech means king. Malach means angel. It's not the same word, but it means, read it with me, creative labor, which is forbidden on Shabbat. Creative labor. I mean, read it to yourself. Or two, any action that creates, destroys, or permanently changes. So there are people who will not water their lawn, right? They will, let's see what else we have on here. Yeah, okay, coming up. So I don't want to dwell on these too much, but that's why we started the class by asking, did any of you ever hear of this? Well, let's not do the bathroom stuff. A traditional Jew family will have their lights on a timer. All right. We call it a Shabbos clock. So nowadays we have timers. So you plug your, let's say, one living room lamp. And folks, I'm not telling you, I'm not preaching you. I'm just trying to give you the explanation of what you would find in the home of a traditional family. And I could, and I used to do this, Herb knows this, I used to do as part of my intro programs in LA. Here's your homework assignment, folks. Keep Shabbat for one Shabbat. Maybe not Orthodox, but see, what am I going to do? What am I not going to do? So it's not that hard to say, I will not turn on the light, and just experiment. You might try that as an experiment. Say, how does it feel? And I have to admit, since the iPhones came in, I'm as guilty as the next person. Some of you know, some of you have texted me on Shabbat and I don't respond. Maybe I should be a better role model, by not responding at all. Okay, so these are not
Hey,
necessarily.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
sorry to bug you again.
Sure.
So just a quick question. Being that it seems like probably everyone else has Shabbat off is set for me.
Right.
What are the views of the Jewish community on doing a replacement Shabbat? Like if I did on Sunday instead of
Yeah,
Saturday.
No, I know. That was the Reform movement experimented with that. They talked about that in the 1860s in America,
Okay.
or even I think in Europe too. I have Christian colleagues, for example, Patricia Bell from Frontier Methodist wrote on her, like email note, I take Sabbath on Wednesdays. So she decided she needed a Sabbath kind of experience. Devin, I don't want you or anybody else in this room to feel guilty. You could, and Joshua did this, some of you can try to change your work schedule. You're the boss there, but you could say, or maybe you could say, make a deal with I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not preaching,
Right.
but you
Sure.
could, as an example, what you might do is say, twice a month, you say, I'm leaving work at 4 or 4:30, 3 o'clock, whatever, even if it's after dark, I'm going to go home and Jamie and I are going to have Shabbat and make dinner together. And
Okay, that's a good idea.
maybe one of those times you can take two Shabbases, one to be at home, one to be at shul. I don't know. But
Sure.
it's important for you all to come to the synagogue. We need that. So I want to get to this, even
It
though.
was like Stephanie might have a question too, and then
Go
I'll
ahead.
show them.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yes, Steph.
Oh no, I was just
Oh.
gonna say that when it comes to Shabbat, it's a state of mind kind of
That's
thing.
right.
I mean,
That's
it
mhm.
so yes, you may have to work, but you
For
don't
sure.
have to let your work consume you.
Right.
You know, you're trying to make as little imprint on that day as possible. And sometimes it's the mental side of
you.
it that you
Please do.
need to work on.
Oh, so you guys most of you have turned your cameras off, so we couldn't hear her. We couldn't see her, but I love that. And that's why I'm glad I asked Stephanie to stick around.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie.
Yep.
Yep.
Are we back to the share? No, I go back to the share. Yes, it is. It is showing. No, it's not. Oh, I go back to the share. So, but yeah, I agree with you all. And in a minute, we're going to get to the Zachor part, the positives. So what you could say is, I wanted you to hear the traditional. Oh, now it's something else. Hang on. It went to. There it is. It went to a different screen. So I wanted you to hear and see from me personally and from the text here what things traditional Jews don't do. Another thing you could do, let's say, I'll just say Stephanie and Sam and Emily, or you can say, we're going to go get a hotel in Denver and maybe we'll have to drive there, but we're going to go to Hebrew Educational Association for Shabbat. I think you all should go to a traditional conservative synagogue sometime or go to Chabad in Fort Collins. But they know you're driving, but you should observe and see what is done. So let me go back and we'll talk about this in a minute too. You sit down at the table, you've cleaned the house, you've made your meal, maybe you're ready to eat in time for Shabbat. By the way, you do not have to be ready to eat at candlelighting time. Traditionally, you light the candles and you get your meal cooked and you're finished. And then let's say you just let the meal sit in the oven. In a traditional home, I don't mean men and women, but let's say the meal is at home hot. You go to, do you know that traditional Jews, like my friends Fran and Joel, the service is at 5 at the synagogue and they come home to eat afterwards. The only reason this is a side issue, but the only reason many American synagogues started doing a later service is it's easier for people to get home, eat, and then come to the shul. So that's why our service is a compromise. Ours is at 7. So anyway, the Shabbat table is very, very meaningful. I don't say it's important. Get a white tablecloth if you don't already. Buy candlesticks, right? Go invest in either in our gift shop or somewhere online or through a Judaica store, invest in a nice Kiddush cup. So these are the 3 items. And they go in this order. You light the candles. We'll come to that in a few minutes. You light the candles, you say the Kiddush, and then you do the motzi. In effect, just so you understand, what we are doing at the synagogue is, it's compromise. We light the candles before the service, and then we do the service, and then we go, and that's why we have the Oneg Shabbat, right, Herb? For you too. Remember at Ami Shalom, same thing. We would go into the central hall. Everybody does this in America. Technically, it's a home event. Well, let me get my tea. I'm gonna get raw. I think I'm talking a lot here. So those are the three most important things. So go back to this one. Oh, rituals of Shabbat day. All right. Ideally, again, don't think of Mount Sinai as a great example. We should have a Shabbat service in the morning. We should have come to services, and then after that, you go home and eat lunch. There is also a third meal. This is not hard to explain, just to understand. If I put it this way, remember we did this last week. Jewish time is evening, morning. So Friday night is the meal number 1 of Shabbat. Meal number 2 is, they don't consider breakfast a meal. Is I had a bagel, I had some cereal, right? But the second meal is the Shabbat lunch. That's when people, if you go to one of these traditional synagogues or Chabad house, people say, come over to the house for Shabbat lunch. And you're going to get, a hot meal that's been sitting in a crock pot, or it might be cold, whatever. Noam's father, Yaakov, when I was in Israel, we went to the services, we came home, and he had hot soup on the stove that had been sitting. So it was completely Shomer Shabbat, but we had nice hot soup with chicken in it. So then this is not a test question. In the afternoon, and my memories of this from yeshiva is really fun. This is called Su'udah Shlishit. Su'udah means meal, Shlishit third, the third meal. What's the third meal? Rabbi, what's the third meal? The third meal is, while it's still Shabbat, it's not dinner. It's like, yeah, how on, Devin? Thank you. I see the hand. It's, they sit down and you have, maybe that's when you would have a snack. So we used to, in the yeshiva, we would sit around with all the young men, it was all men, and we would sit around and we would eat apples and nuts and fruit and a cracker, and we would say, this is the third meal. So what's your question, Devin?
Sorry.
Sorry.
Not trying, bless you. Not trying to stay on the same topic per
Mhm.
se, but
Yes,
so going back to the whole no lighting or extinguishing of fires. So
right.
you have your Shabbat candles lit. Now, do they burn out till they're out, or
Correct.
has it a certain time the next day?
No,
Then
that's
you're-
what I was saying. That and I'm going to get to the details of how you can do that.
Okay.
When you buy Shabbat candles, if it's a store or something, they are about 6 inches tall. It is perfectly kosher, by the way, to just use, you know what tea lights are, everybody? The
Mhm.
little things, so you can use a tea light, and that's what's so great. Let's say that you're going camping and you're going to be gone for the weekend, but you still want to honor Shabbat. So you can bring little tea lights, hopefully the weather's okay. You sit down and you light those little tea lights. I will bring them. That's what Rebecca was talking about when she was going to having to be on call. So yes, the answer is what you said. And what I was trying to say is we light the candles in the little chapel there. So technically we should not blow them out. We should keep them going. And by the way, this applies also to Hanukkah candles, not because you can't blow them out. Hanukkah is totally open, no mitzvah, no halacha says but you shouldn't blow those out because they are memory candles. So you generally speaking don't blow a candle out. And also, I don't want to say it's superstitious, but it's like you lit this candle for the spiritual message. Blowing it out would be the wrong thing to do. So going back to what you try to do, Shabbat starts 18 minutes before sunset on Friday. Shabbat ends about 1 hour after sunset on Saturday, or when 3 stars are visible in the sky. And one more, you have seen me do this, Havdalah. That's a new one for some of you, Havdalah or Havdalah. Sounds like a Muslim. Abdullah, no, Havdalah means separate. So the Havdalah ceremony, which we did on the evening of Yom Kippur, is after any Shabbat or holiday, you can conclude it with joy also. So wine, we started it with wine, we ended with wine. Instead of 2 candles, we have multi-wick candle. And in place of the food, the challah, we have the spice box. Isn't that cool? So I want to end this section by going back to this thing. And this has to do with, and it's in the other material too. What are the things that we as modern Jews, you as journeyers on this journey, and I include Debbie in this too, we're all, Debbie's taking care of the grandchildren. I think that if I were to I'm not going to tell you what to do. I would think that each one of you would want to buy a set, find a good pair of candlesticks. They don't have to, look Jewish, but from a synagogue, from a Jewish store or online. And then we don't have anywhere in Cheyenne a store that sells, you'll forgive the expression, kosher Jewish candles. Why? Because this is too much detail for some of you, but they used to make candles, you know how they used to make candles using lard and stuff. So a kosher candle means it's only made with pure wax. Okay, I don't think there's any problem today. So let's say you can't find Shabbat candles. Go and buy candles. I would not go and buy votive candles like the Catholics have. So, but I'm saying a mitzvah that every one of you could do is to get candles and candlesticks to go, even right here at King Super or Albertson, buy kosher wine, and go to Rick and ask his wife to make you a good challah and keep 10 of them in the fridge. I'm telling you, man, she should go into business. All she needs to do is learn how to, make it kosher. Now, but look,
Just need people to tell us when to want them.
What's that?
Just need people to tell us when they want them.
Yeah, that's right. Go to these other things, though. Again, this is a modern connections. I'm not saying I'm a perfect Jew, but avoid commerce. So well, I'll come back to that actually. Let's do the Zachor part, the positive. Meditate, go outside, take a walk, connect with your loved ones, talk with your children or your loved ones. Be good to yourself. Maybe you're going to shul, maybe you're not. But it is a day of rest. It is a day in which and this is a fun joke. I had a guy at the prison who came in, his wife was a volunteer, and is a good friend of mine, Ellie, and he would come and he would play music, and he said, hi ladies, how you doing? I'm going to help you to rejuvenate. And he would sit down at the piano and play his soulful Jewish songs. Shabbat is a time when we rejuvenate. That's in the Vishamru, it says, on Shabbat, God rested and vayin nafash. By the way, I want to go back to that for a second. I want to go back to this, the two versions just for a second. Notice, as I said here, that the first version says, remember the Shabbat day, and that's fine. And the second one says, guard the Shabbat day. We've established that remember means positive things you do to make it holy, and shamor, guard, means things you don't do to make it holy. But there's one other major difference. I mean, details about which one says sons and which one says sons and donkeys. But notice it says, on account, because 6 days God made heaven and earth. Oh, and look at the Deuteronomy version. Remember that you were a slave in Egypt. So in the Kiddush on Friday night, we say that. We say, in the long Kiddush, we sing, the one that nobody knows, but they're singing along. As a remembrance of so that both reasons we keep Shabbat to honor God who created the world in 6 quote unquote days. Just ignore, I'm not going to get into that one tonight. The God rested, so we rest. And we also were slaves and we couldn't rest, so we don't roll on Shabbos. All right, I will go briefly over these for you. Again, this is just in case you didn't know. An item that you don't touch certain things. Don't take this to heart. You don't have to do this, but let's say I've lit the candles, as Devin says. You put the matches aside, and you generally don't even touch an item. And this is called making a fence around the Torah. A pencil, a pen, a plug, um, well, I'm not supposed to play my guitar traditionally, but I do for a different reason, because I believe it's part of the joy of Shabbat. So muktzah is a great word. It means anything that, a pen, computer, you don't touch them. Then they have something else I want you to see, eruv, not Arab or Erev, but eruv. Maybe this is too much halacha for you guys, but maybe you know this, maybe you don't. In traditional Jewish neighborhoods and all around Jerusalem and all around not just Orthodox places, but in let's say La Cienega, Fairfax, Brooklyn, I'm going to give the example. Let's say Devin and Jamie. I live next door to Devin and Jamie, and they want to keep Shabbat, but they want to be able to sit in their backyard, and they want to carry their lunch out to the backyard. And I live next door, and we have a little, door between the fence. So what we could do is we could create a fence that's a legal. This is rabbis talking, a legal boundary saying, I have my house, you have your house, but we created a boundary. I should have explained this. Orthodox Jews, traditional Jews don't even carry on Shabbat. How are you supposed to get to the, you got to carry your kid to and from the synagogue, or carry your keys. When I was in that Orthodox phase, I would, if there was a way to do it, I would attach my keys to my belt. And okay, Rick, coming up. And so I don't want to dwell on the heavy duty traditional stuff, but what an Arab does is it creates a make believe boundary. So all around Jerusalem, it's a string that goes. Let me stop the screen share. It's a string that goes from telephone pole to telephone pole or through extension cords, and you don't have to look for it, but they will sometimes somebody will say, "Oh, why is that guy not carrying?" Or they're making the kid walk. You can put your kid in a stroller, right? But the Arab's down. The arrow's down. All right, that's traditional stuff. But before I let Rick talk, I just want you guys to hear the shamor part. Don't drive yourself crazy. But if you ever do go to the home of a traditional Jew, let's say you went to Chabad, they will have in the bathroom a nightlight, all right? And they will leave you tissue paper because, and it sounds very funny, but it's not. You're tearing toilet paper. So instead, there's a tissue paper or there's torn toilet paper. So these little things that I did for like the whole 3 years that I was Shomer Shabbos, I had my lights on, a timer. I had my food cooked already, and so on. Okay, Rick, go. I want to run out.
So it's
Yeah.
considered you're working during the day of worship because you're getting paid for it.
I know. I thought somebody was going to do that smart question. Yep.
But your guitar is at work when it's part of the worship. I think it's part of the worship because it's not really working. It's
Yes.
part of the
Interesting.
festival.
The answer that I would give you is is that your hand then? Okay. The answer is, no, let's do the question of, is a rabbi working? If they're davening, if they're part of the synagogue. Traditionally, no. I'm a worshiper just like you. And I'm not going to address the question of driving. I will in a minute. I want you guys to have a traditional mindset, but I want to be careful not to make you feel guilty. We don't do this. We don't do that. We don't. If you wanted to live walking, you know who lives walking distance to the synagogue? Joshua and Mary. She walks home. Isn't that nice? But the idea with, is a rabbi or a cantor being paid they are being supported. Oh, he's cooking. I love that. Whatever you're doing there. So yay. Did you bring enough for everybody? Teasing him. Oh, well, look at that. Oh, they're challahs. Oh, that's cool.
No, I made it for Amber.
Chocolate challahs. Anyway, the answer about the rabbinic person or something like that is, I am not, it feels like work, it looks like work, and therefore it quacks like a duck, but it's not. Okay. However, again, this is where it gets a little dicey. Is a custodian working on Shabbat? Well, yes. And so some synagogues in the old days would have, let's say, a Gentile custodian. But it gets into stuff that sounds a little unpleasant. Not unpleasant, but bad. But in the old days, there would be people who would come in. Ivan from the down the street would come in and to the old lady's house, and he would light the oven so she would not freeze to death. He was called a Shabbos goy, and so up until recently, even in today, some places, if you come with me to the East Side Kosher Deli, there's a guy there from Latin America who goes and helps, and he goes to Florida every year to help families do a Seder. So he does the work. So it's for the sake of holiness. Let me go back to that idea, though, that it is a mitzvah, and this is where things weigh in your mind. What is a greater mitzvah? To bring joy to Shabbat, or to not do something, say, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that. So here's my justification. Maybe it seems lame. If I were to become Orthodox, or let's say not Orthodox, if I were to move back to Israel, or I married a woman who said, Moshe, I want to keep Shabbat. All right, so we have to move close to the shul or whatever. I decided long ago that playing the guitar was part of my beauty. Why? Part of the spiritual. Why? In the temple, this is where it gets very interesting among the rabbinic discussion. In the temple, they had instruments on Shabbat, drums. And now, after the temple was destroyed, this becomes part of our history. After the temple was destroyed, they ruled that you may, got this going here. Okay. You may not play an instrument on Shabbat because you should not tune. The real reason, I mean, not real, but they didn't want to say it, but they were so sad. It was a very emotional time, and it was somehow, the temple was special, right? We've lost the temple from now on, and it was sad. For 2,000 years, almost 2,500 years, there was no music played on Shabbat. Now, it is very beautiful to sing. And again, the Yemenite Jews do something really cool. They'll have 20 people sitting around a table, and they have little booklets in front of everybody, and somebody leads in a song. The Zmirot, they're called, the traditional songs. You don't need to have percussion. Now, Rabbi Sharon Browse's synagogue in Los Angeles, she's very traditional, although she's also very liberal, politically. She's well known, and the synagogue made the decision, you can't play a stringed instrument because you will tune it. It's okay to play percussion. Clang, 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 ding, ding, shake, shake. Big deal, So I want to get into some of that, but only briefly. Let's go. I'll put this up in a second. I don't want to dwell on the do nots so many more, but one more thing. 1952, 3, 4, somewhere in there. Here we have, and we'll get into this when we talk about American Jews. The American Jewish situation began to change things as people 20s, 30, probably the 30s after the war, especially. That's what I say, it was 52, 53. Orthodox, you walk to shul. Period. End of story. If somebody drives, we're not going to talk about it. He parked his car down the street. Okay, that's his thing. But generally speaking, you do not drive on Shabbat. Comes the 50s, and synagogues are no longer walking distance, or they're big cities, or they're New York. So the the Rabbinical Assembly's Law Committee. That is the Law Committee. I hope you guys are following me. We have Reform saying this is no longer binding. We have Orthodox saying, yes, it is. And in the middle, we had, in those years, Conservative said, we must do something so people come to synagogue. This is the ruling. I mean, maybe it sounds hypocritical to you, like, oh, they said, you may drive to and from the synagogue in order to go to prayer, as long as you don't use money. Stop for gas. What if you have to go across the Brooklyn Bridge? I don't know. I mean, their bridges don't have tolls. So I know people, not Fran and Joel are close enough to walk, but there are people who would say that. So again, this may sound very lame if I'm going by a strict system. I drove from my house to the prison so that the women could have Shabbat. And I did it. And, I tried not to. It was like Stephanie said, it was a state of mind. I went there and I drove home. I could have moved walking distance to the synagogue, but that's not me anymore. So, but maybe go back to the music. What they used to do is they would say, we can have music, but it's not going to be the rabbi. It'll be, like an organist, a pianist. All right, more questions on that? Yeah, there's a lot more, but let's go to, this stuff somewhat, but this is from my Jewish learning. I sent it to you, and this is what I wrote. This is what I said. And here's a nice word to learn. And I'll say it again, folks. Subscribe to my Jewish learning. You almost don't need me. I mean, you do, but I'm your guide. But okay, they call it bench licht or licht benchen. That's Yiddish. 18-minute window just before sundown. If you go to these Jewish calendars I've been talking about, or this large one we have, it will tell you at the bottom what time in many cities. So we are following Denver time. This coming, we're November 1, okay? So November 1, we would have to light Shabbat candles at 5:39. That's pretty early. Again, I'm not telling you what you do, but this is how it's in Jerusalem. It's even earlier, right? In Jerusalem, I was with Yaakov, and they didn't have a siren because today people are too scared. So instead, at around it was the summertime, so about 6 o'clock, the entire area. This is, it was I forgot the name of the neighborhood now. Very Orthodox neighborhood. And they would have on a loudspeaker some, taped thing or somebody singing, Shalom Aleichem Malachei Hasharet. What's that for, Yaakov? Oh, that's so people know to light candles. Here's another thing. What kind of candles? I will say it is beautiful, any kind of candle you could get. But you can get these nice, 4-inch tall, 5-inch tall, but a tea light will work. I forgot about Neronim. Take a drive to the East Side Kosher Deli, maybe with me or some other people, and you can get these little glass candles in glass cups. This is interesting. This goes to how many candles? Why is it 2? Actually, there are 2 theories about it. One is what they said here, 2 for the 2 different commandment statements. Also, 2 is creation and revelation. And until maybe around the late 1800s, people used to light a little 7-branched menorah in their house as a remembrance of what they used to do in the temple. There's another tradition, I'm just adding to this. Some people, Johnny, come here. Susie, come here. Yaakov, come here. And every kid gets to light their own little candle. Isn't that nice? Grandpa lights his own candle. Now, here I say this with some, whatever, a little bit of concern. It is or was, I want to say this because what is tradition? It was considered tradition. It is considered tradition for the women to light the candles. Why? Because I mean, let's be positive instead of negative. The women in those days were the keepers of the flame, the keepers of the home. The guy came home from work, but believe it or not, in Roman times, many women worked. In fact, many women were wealthy because they would run inns or things. So today, they light them together, egalitarian. When I was in my yeshiva phase, that's really interesting for me to think about it. I would go to 8:20. I would go to a yeshiva, and they were all guys. None of us were married. And so I asked that same question. I'm a man. Am I allowed to light candles? Damn it, you are. There's no woman there. So today, here's the thing about extinguishing. Let them blow out all the way. Let them extinguish themselves. But today, I'm in a dilemma. I think at Mount Sinai, I like the idea of honoring in a positive way a woman to light the candles. Debbie, are you still online? Debbie and I disagree about things sometimes, but one thing I really love is she sometimes comes as, and when she's there, she will ask, "Can I light the candles?" I think it's beautiful. So I'm going back to all of you. I say each of you should have those three items: Shabbat candles, a Kiddush cup. Hey, by the way, you don't have to have a Kiddush cup. I mean, you can. I mean, I'm trying to give you the custom, and there's a concept that I skipped over called Hidur Mitzvah. Hidur Mitzvah. Where is that? No, it was before. Beautifying the mitzvah. I have a talit. I could just have a plain blue and white talis or my father's talis, but I have a beautiful talis with colors in it. I have a purple one. I have a rainbow one. That is called beautifying the mitzvah. So long ago, Jews began creating rituals or ritual objects like Shabbat candles, Hanukkah, menorah, the Kiddush cup, even you'll see them in the synagogue, a little cup with two handles to wash your hands before you eat bread. You familiar with that? Okay. So the making something beautiful. All right. We all know the blessing for lighting the candles. And here's what they did there. They show you the Neronim. And that is on myjewishlearning.com. Let's look in the remaining time, or unless you'd like to just have an open discussion, I want to make sure I cover everything I wanted to cover. Stop share. Hi, Boo Boo. Look at the pussycat. Let's see. William came over to my house today. I called some of you to help me move the plants inside. And so we let his dog run around in the backyard. Let's see, where was I? Okay, class 5, challah recipe. You don't need my challah recipe. Shabbat 101, and that is Shabbat. What is that one? Okay, let's look at Shabbat 101, and let's see if there's anything I didn't cover. Oh, okay, hang on. I got it here. Shabbat 101. From my Jewish learning. Oh, you know what? I bet. All right, we have it. I wanted to say one more thing about candles. There is another theory that they may have started this idea of lighting two candles because you had to, and this is very simple, but they had to have one candle in the living room in a home in, let's say, in Jerusalem, and one candle in the bedroom. So that may have been another origin for it. We don't really know. Oh, okay. You know what? We're gonna stay on the Jewish Learning site. So Shabbat 101. Okay. Where did it go? Oh, I'm looking at that. Okay, let me go to the website version of it. I had it here. Hit me with a comment or question so we're not being bored. Oh, there it is. Okay. My Jewish Learning, I had it up here. Oh, okay. Um, 101. Oh, there it is. Okay. I think I covered everything. And let me go to the screen share as quickly as I can. Um, so women can light candles, men can light candles, women can lead the Kiddush. When we get into talking about the American Jewish scene, we have women rabbis, we have gay rabbis, we have trans rabbis. Things have changed. Okay, Shabbat history and development. I wanted to say something about that just for a minute. Remember it said, the Bible said, the Torah says, this is forbidden labor. You must not work on the Shabbat. But the home is paramount. So some places will say, I'm going shopping for dinner on Wednesday. Okay, in America, the synagogue is the focus, but as I said before, there are a lot of communities I know where people will not be seen on Friday night. Instead, they're going to go on Saturday morning, and they will spend Shabbat at evenings. Okay, we got dogs, we got cats. It's really fun. Okay, let me go back to my Jewish learning because I want to show you that a second. And we don't have time tonight to really do the Kiddush, but at least let's look at, oh, come on, I had it. It keeps on disappearing. My Jewish learning, there it is, Shabbat archives. Shabbat, we did lighting Shabbat candles. Okay, here is, and read these on your own too. The blessings for Friday night, here they are, right? Blessing the candles, blessing for the children. This is also beautiful. I want to tell you about Max and Arlene, my parents. They're in the living room on the wall. My mom was very curious. She didn't grow up with a strong Jewish background. My dad rebelled against his traditional Sephardic Jewish background. So they moved to California. We joined a conservative synagogue. It wasn't to their liking. And they went to a Reform synagogue. We used to drive to Hollywood. And at some point, and my dad and I, it's another story altogether. My dad and I had issues, just normal kind of things that a kid would have, being the only boy in the family. So that's my personal part. But the point is, it was sometimes a tough week. Mom was working. She was a school teacher, substitute teacher. Dad was running a business and working for the LA County Road Department. At some point, this very Reformed synagogue handed out or sent home, and please don't make me do this, but they sent home a little packet, little booklet that said, here is some rituals for Shabbat. Just like I said, candle lighting, singing. And my mother insisted, my Reform, Hungarian, highly assimilated mother. There you go. That's a Shabbos activity, Rick, petting the dog, making them feel so good. Oh, look at that. I don't know what you guys are seeing, but I'm looking at him. So my mother insisted that we light candles and do the Kiddush and get challah. And this was a Reform household. I'm just saying that so you understand. It's not only the Orthodox. Where was I? I got Rick all over the place. Firefox. Okay. So the traditional blessing for the children is, you all see that on the sphere? May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, this particular group, nobody in this group has their own children, but Debbie has the grandkids. May God make you like, bless you like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. The best thing I can suggest you might remember is in Fiddler on the Roof, they have the song, the Sabbath blessing. May the Lord protect and defend you. May he always, remember that? May you be like Ruth and like Esther, keep you from the stranger's ways. Yeah, cute. So all of this is part of the evening at home ritual. The Shalom Aleichem is also part of the home ritual. Here's one you may not know. the Eshet Chayil, somebody mentioned that the other day to me. Who was that who mentioned that? A woman of valor. Was that you, Devin? No? Herb, do you ever do this at home with Anna? You could try that when you get back home. So it's the
Yeah, sometimes we do.
yeah, Proverbs 31. It's beautiful. A woman of valor who can find her worth is far above rubies. And it's what's interesting is it's she works. She comes home, her husband blesses her. So it's a very nice ritual if you wanted to. You should learn the Kiddush, the one we do on Friday night. Maybe I should tape it. But at least you have it. Okay. Now, there's also something we don't do in the services, maybe at the synagogue. Maybe we should do this. Washing the hands. You do the washing of the hands every time you eat bread. Okay? I'm going fast now, but I want to see what else we can cover. Okay. So that's Friday night. What do you do on Shabbat morning? We don't have time for all of it, but highlights. Let's look at this. Highlights of the Shabbat morning service. All right. The Shema, the Amidah, the Torah service, the Aliyot to the Torah, right? And then the Haftarah is the concluding portion from the book of the prophets. And so then again, when we end the service, we go into the social hall and we do the Kiddush. Remember, there's always two ways to pronounce everything in Judaism. Everything is Yiddish or Israeli Hebrew. I just had this up. Let me try one more thing from the My Jewish Learning. And let me screen share with you guys. I'm saying now to all of you, subscribe to My Jewish Learning so that you can, I mean, next week we're going to do kashrut, okay? So are you seeing the page? Here's their menu. It's huge. I mean, this is funded. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. Jewish calendar, Shabbat, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. It's like you've got Rabbi Falcon and Rabbi Tolushkin and Rabbi Halfon all right there on the page. Some of the articles might be more traditional than you're used to, but you're learning, So under here is eat. Okay, so I want you to read for next week this article, Keeping Kosher. I will send, a version of it. But I wanted to close with this one. Go find chapter 17, if you have it, of Ted Falcon. On my book, it's on page 208. He says at the bottom of that the chapter, you don't have to read it with me if you want. Right, if you're like us, your life has gotten so full of work projects, social engagements, and so on and so forth. And by the way, there's words that Shabbat is Hebrew, Sabbath. The way we have the word Sabbath is it's a English translation of Shabbat. That's all it is. So the T at the end, Tav becomes a TH. Shabbath, a shibboleth. And then the Ashkenazic version of the Tav, the letter at the end, is a sin, or rather a Saf. So it's Shabbos, and that's another discussion about Yiddish, how it developed. But when the Ashkenazi world began, everything, the accents moved back. Anyway, he writes at the bottom, Shabbat, a peaceful oasis from sunset on Friday until darkness falls on Saturday, is as radical an idea today as it was in ancient times. You take a day off to study, reflect, sing, get quiet, be with family and community, and refresh your body and soul. All right. It is described by the sages as a taste of the world to come, a glimpse of messianic time. We use whatever word works for you. You could call it spiritual time. It's a time when you're in the consciousness of Eden, my Garden of Eden. So let's go back to, let's say, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. a poor Jew is living in a little shtetl, and they barely have enough money to get pumpernickel bread and a piece of potato. They eat, in fact, there used to be a Yiddish song, say, on Sunday potatoes, Tuesday potatoes, Wednesday potatoes, but on Shabbos we have a potato kugel, something to make it special. So imagine a poor Jew who couldn't afford chicken, and there's a well-off man, he makes sure they get a chicken for Shabbat. So that idea of making it special, and I have one more interesting story from my youth about that. He writes on the next page, 208, Shabbat stresses the freedom from human masters. Do you think it's hard enough, Devin, I got to go to work, honey. I mean, maybe give your wife a nice loving kiss and then go back to work, or come home from work and say, hey, honey, light candles, and when I get home, we'll sit and read a book together. Or I'm going to say two more things. So he says here, he noted that during the concentration camp time, Rabbi Viktor Frankl noted that even though they were in the camps, people would do things that would honor Shabbat somehow. They would steal an onion and share an onion. They would have a piece of bread, something to remember that Shabbat. We talk about this sometimes when we light candles. On Shabbat, there's a third little, this is the notes there on page 208. He says, on Shabbat, each person connects with their higher soul, their neshama yetera. I can't give it a wording that will necessarily, let me stop the share and get to us. The idea that on Shabbat, you are more than the working person. You are more than a mom or a dad or a grandparent or a child to your parents. I'll do the off-color one, but it's not off-color. And then another quick story. What time we got? Are we over to 8:34? When I was in high school, in a Reform youth movement, and we went to a weekend retreat at a little summer camp thing, but it was on a weekend, and this during school year, and it was called, a study kala. And who did we lose? Oh, we lost Herb. He's probably has to get to work tomorrow. And we had a round robin. You know what that is? When you go and you sit with one person and then another person and another person. So they invited to the weekend Rabbi Moshe Adler, who was Orthodox, but hip. He's used to work in Hillel with college kids. And we were all curious, and we were Reformed kids. We didn't know any better. And Moshe had and it was a camp that had, space for the kids, but also for the adults. So Moshe had a cabin to himself, and we went to his cabin. He was keeping Shabbat, right? But was part of the responsibility of the program was for us to go and listen to how he kept Shabbat. And we're going like this. What do you mean? You mean you don't do this? You can't do that? It was all new for us. I was so blown away at the way Moshe explained it, but it was still foreign to us. But gets better. Then we went to another speaker. I mean, everybody was, like 6 kids going in groups and groups and groups. That's the round robin. So then our group went to another rabbi, Rabbi Irv Herman, who was, at that time, he's gone now, he was the director of the regional United Reform congregations. And Irv says, and I'm laughing at it now, he says, what do I do to make Shabbat special? I like a cigar. So I don't smoke cigar during the week. On Shabbat, I get to smoke a cigar. And I'll never forget the contrast between Moshe and Irv, that Moshe is keeping traditional Shabbat and Irv is saying. So how I'll leave you is, do what makes you feel special. But my recommendation is look through those notes, read Telushkin, read Falcon, read Blech, and then maybe as a couple, in the case of several of you, decide what is meaningful for you. It might be that it, by the way, you are allowed to pay sports. On the Orthodox kibbutz that I was at, we used to have a baseball team, another kibbutz had a basketball team, and we're playing in our taluses, flying in the wind, the ones you wear, the t-shirt ones. So it was Orthodox, but the problem is then you're sweaty, you want to take a shower. All right, so you can take a shower, but again, Orthodox rules, you can't wring out a towel because that's separating the water from. So on the Orthodox kibbutz that I was at, they did allow the swimming pools to be open, and people were it was in the desert. It's one of the kibbutzim that was attacked, but they didn't, they beat them off. So kibbutz Saad, they allowed swimming, but you would just lie by the pool and dry off. So I didn't want this to be the last thing. It is a mitzvah, going back to this thing about loving honor. It is a mitzvah to make your beloved happy. And if Amber Dawn is there, Rick's explained to me that she loves to make these challahs, and I think she started doing it to honor his journey. It is a mitzvah to spend time with your beloved and to get away, and not to say, hey, let's watch a movie together. I mean, I'm not saying to turn off your TV, but let's say you would say, we're not going to watch a movie, or we're not going to watch the aggravating news or whatever, but it's a mitzvah. It's called a double mitzvah to make love on Shabbat. Again, traditionally, to somebody you're married to. So, it is real. The idea, though, is pleasure. Now, this goes back to what I said before about eating. Eating is a mitzvah. You're honoring God. Playing chess is enjoyable. So I want you to come away saying to yourself, what kind of activity could we engage in that is uplifting, meaningful, but has to do with human interaction rather than human to machine, if I can make that up. So I go and I sit in my garden in my backyard, and I don't I don't pick a flower. I don't pick a leaf. I mean, I'm not Orthodox anymore, but the idea of watching it grow. So I'll end with this. It's not in this text, but Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, it's in, I believe it's in Polishkin's book. Heschel used to say, Jews that's what the title of that chapter is. Jews make a palace in time. If you have not read the sections I mentioned in Tolushkin and Falcon, please do. And now again, so next week the topic is kosher laws. You thought today was complicated? Yeah. Rick was asking me the other day, how do I get kosher meat? What do you do? Read everything you can, including things I'll send you, but I'm going to emphasize it again. It's just part of your journey, and I admire all of you who are in this journey. And by the way, Stephanie too, she already finished this. You all, each Jew today makes their own decision about what they will do. When I was with Yaakov, that's Noam's dad, he knew that I was not keeping Shabbat. I was in the bedroom where Noam grew up, but I honored his Shabbat and he didn't bother me. That's very typical of a Sephardic Jew. So, anybody want a last comment from anybody? Stephanie, you were the host. You want to? No? Anybody?
I've got nothing.
Okay. Okay, I'll end with this. This is on the Ted Falcon section. All Shabbat rules are suspended in cases where a person's life is in danger. Like I said before, the hospital, because saving a life is paramount. And they even said, the Talmud said, desecrate one Shabbat so that the person can live to fulfill many Shabbatot. Isn't that interesting? So if you need to eat, and and this has to do with what you do on a fast day. I will tell people, if you need to eat or to have your pill and drink or eat, and Stephanie's question, do you want, Stephanie asked me before we got on, before you all were in the room, her prosthetic leg is electronic. That would fall into the category of saving a life, you know? So, I think I'll end with this, and I wanted to say that Judaism is a system of mitzvot. I was actually going to start with this, but remember, the word mitzvah means commandment, but the rabbis determined that the mitzvot had to be situational. So let's say Sam asked me, what do I do? But then a week later, Devin asked me something, and I might give Devin a slightly different answer, you know? I don't mean just halachically, I might say, because they're both within the spirit of Shabbat. Is that making sense? All right, Rabbi talked a lot as usual tonight. Oh yeah, I got one last quote for you, and this is good because we're recording. Achad Ha'am was a philosopher, one of the guys from Russia. I always talk about them, Asher Ginsburg, but he took the name one of the people, Achad Ha'am. So like a lot of those Russian Zionist early 20th century folks, they were spiritual but not religious. And he felt it was important for Jews to honor Shabbat, but he was not an Orthodox Jew already by that point. Here's his line. This is a great one. More than the Jews have kept the Shabbat has kept the Jews. Think about that. And we've got to end. Think about that. Many people, not just in our day, many people throughout history have, what if you're on the boat with Columbus? What are you going to say? Sorry, Columbus, I can't, I got to stay down in the galley all day, or I'm going to just sit in the sun and not do any jobs. But so they knew then that sometimes you broke Shabbat, but Shabbat will keep you. And he meant that what he's saying is one of the things that really sets us apart from other people is our honoring of Shabbat. So endeth the sermon. All right. Anybody else? Did I push you to sleep? I wanted to sing some songs tonight, but that's okay. Yeah. Can I put Emily on the spot? Emily, you smile so much. Oh, by the way,
Sure.
this was being recorded also for all of us, but Taylor will join us next week, I hope. Emily, what's your experience now with this? Since you answered the question at the beginning, but I just feel like somehow you got the last word. What do you want to share? Anything?
Well, I am currently reading, it's probably more for next week too, but it relates to Shabbat. I'm currently reading a book on kosher laws
Yeah.
and like the why behind it. And I think it's just very inspiring.
Mhm.
Even this conversation, I appreciate that it's like the why we're doing it. It's not just about the
Right.
what, like the laws of
Or
what to
you
do or
must,
what not to do.
yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like the why and what you get back out of it.
Right.
Yeah, so
What's
I'm really excited for it, I think.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll share it next week, but what's the book? I'm just curious.
Let me go grab it. It's right here.
All right.
It's right here. Let me grab it.
We're over time, but
Oh, I'm ready.
right. I'm not worried.
I ran. Was that fast? It's
Sam Dressner's. Seymour Siegel. That's a great
yeah.
yeah, Seymour Siegel, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like halfway through. It's a really quick
Very
read.
conservative approach.
Yeah.
But it's good.
My mother-in-law gave it to me.
Uh-huh.
So we'll see what
Right.
what I get out of it.
We'll talk about that there too. I think a lot of you
Yeah.
you learn from everybody. Don't just learn from me. Learn from every rabbi and jewishlearning.com and go to Chabad. But if you have relatives, I had a woman, one of my my ladies from the prison who paroled. So she was paroled. We were talking, Jasmine, and I don't know if she finally did convert. I have to get back in touch with her. Turns out she had a relative who lived in the valley, this is LA, and had converted but was Orthodox. Same thing as I talked about. And she invited her over. I said, go to this woman's home. So go and experience what Shabbat is like anywhere, everywhere, Reform, conservative, Chabad, and so on. All right. Love you guys. I'll see you all next week.
Thank
And
you, Rabbi.
And thanks, Stephanie, for staying on.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Yeah,
Right.
not a problem. And I did get your email, Emily, about the Siddur.
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
thank you. I
So-
forgot too. Yeah, thanks.
No, not a problem. What I might do is just leave a couple on my desk for you,
Okay,
with your names on it so that you can pick
Yeah.
them up whenever you happen to be up.
great. Thank you. I think we'll try to be up Friday. Kind of
Oh,
depends on the
great.
timing of it, but
I am doing the next 3 Shabbats. I mean, it's the 1, 8, and 15.
Yeah.
And somebody else will lead the others. All right. I like to end by saying something nice like, I love you all, but that sounds a little weird. So I'll say, Shalom. Shalom. All right. Namaste.
Shalom.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
thanks.
Thank you.
And everybody.